The last few months have been tough for the world economy. Shares were dropping, inflation was rising, food and fuel was becoming tough to afford. In some countries, people hit the streets. Their household budgets were simply becoming unsustainable. And during all this hardship, all this struggle to make ends meet, one group was having a ball: oil companies. Today, BP published their second quarter profits. BP is a British oil and gas company. They're one of the biggest energy giants in the world. Guess how much they made in the last quarter? Almost $8.5 billion, 8.45 to be precise, billion dollars. Let me put that number in context. It is the highest quarterly profit for BP in 14 years. Compared to 2021, their profits have tripled. And BP is just one example. This year has been a bonanza for big oil. 4 companies have logged a combined profit of $51 billion. That's $51 billion in 3 months. This includes ExxonMobil, Chevron, Shell, and Total Energies. Exxon topped the list with $18 billion. And just to be clear, these are not normal profits. Every oil giant is earning more than ever before. And where do you think that money is coming from? Your pockets. Since the war in Ukraine, oil prices have increased considerably. They topped $120 per barrel in March. What does that mean? It means that you're paying more for energy. In Britain, energy bills could increase by 158% in winter, 411% in Spain, 343% in Greece, and 336% in France. Even here in India, prices are rising. The state of Maharashtra is bracing for a 20% rise in electricity bills. Where do you think all of this money is going? It's going to big oil. Their profits are driving our inflation. The question is, how can we correct this? Economists usually prescribe windfall taxes. If the profits are too high, governments demand a larger share. India imposed a windfall tax on oil in the month of July. The government ended up earning $12 billion extra. Britain too has imposed a windfall tax. Oil companies must pay 25% extra on the profits made in Britain. What about the US? Their oil companies rule the global markets, yet there is no windfall tax in the United States. Guess why? Because US politicians want to protect the free market. That's what they say. Now, for any other industry, this argument would work, but not for oil. Big oil is the most exclusive industry in the world. It is full of cartels, lobbying, and gigantic corporations. It is the opposite of free market. So not taxing big oil is driving up inflation. It is making oil companies richer. At the same time, it is increasing your energy bills. And here in India, there could be more bad news. India's biggest gas supplier, GAIL, has begun rationing natural gas. Fertilizer plants are getting 10% less. Industrial clients are getting 10 to 20% less. The reason? Gas shipments from Russia's Gazprom are not arriving in India. Instead, they're heading to Europe. The company has invoked a clause called force majeure. It usually means an unforeseen circumstance. War definitely qualifies, but in this case, it was pretty foreseeable. India's GAIL had long-term contracts to buy Russian gas, and long-term contracts are usually cheap. Europe, on the other hand, is hungry for more gas. Hence, they are willing to pay more. So instead of shipping to India, Gazprom is sending the gas to Europe. Where does that leave GAIL, the Indian company? Well, they can buy natural gas from the spot market, but the prices are 3 times higher. The company's shares closed almost 4% down today. They've hiked gas rates by 18%, which means your CNG, your LNG, all of it will get more expensive. Most of Asia is facing the same problem. They bought long-term contracts for natural gas, but producers are refusing to supply now. Instead, they're sending their gas to Europe. What about penalties for violating contracts? Well, there are penalties. But even after paying those, energy companies are making huge profits. So why sell in Asia when you could earn a fortune in Europe? That's what they're doing. I'll give you an example. Indian Oil recently announced a tender for LNG cargo. Not a long-term contract, but a spot market tender. Guess how many bids they got? 0. Not even a single supplier turned up. At the same time, Europe's energy imports, LNG imports, are up 56%. They're draining the global supply, and this is bad news for India. Almost 48% of India's gas is imported. Fertilizer plants use this gas, industries use this, vehicles use it. So if gas becomes more expensive, ordinary Indians will feel the pinch, which brings me back to the big oil, the oil cartels, big oil, and governments. A tiny group is making our lives miserable. Western governments with their sanctions, Russia with their energy brinkmanship, and big oil with their never-ending hunger for profits. There is nothing free market about this crisis. This is a man-made economic disaster. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.